I've not heard of any other place where there was a postgraduate college that offered students the kind of amenities this did. This is unique. This is far superior to anything or any colleges. Kathleen Lumley possibly tops them all.
This was set up to be a community building. From day one, as you enter the college, you're part of this, and everything is, very welcoming and just great.
It's an incredibly unique opportunity to have met people and to build such amazing bonds that I think a lot of people would envy.
The college has a wonderful, rich history, has made a difference to a lot of people over time, but times have changed and how we support people needs to change along with that.
The link between the foundation now and the college as it was is really one about community, and our desire to not just pump prime research, but to do it in a way we're creating a community of scholars.
So my grandfather was Kenneth Wills, and while he was involved with the University Council, he purchased, or the university at least purchased, quite a lot of land here in North Adelaide. So he worked quite closely with Sir Henry Baston, who was Vice-Chancellor, and I believe the two of them worked together to establish a postgraduate university college affiliated with the University of Adelaide. The Lumley connection comes about because my grandfather, Sir Kenneth Wills' sister, is Kathleen Lumley. There was obviously funding required to actually build the buildings, the accommodation, common room, dining room and so forth. And Kathleen Lumley generously provided a lot of that money, along with the Australian Universities Commission as well. But in recognition of her funding of the building, a college was named after her.
She was born in Adelaide. She lived in Adelaide and also had a house in the hills. And she had a very happy childhood here. Her father then died of TB and she was aged 12. And so she went back to England with her mother, who was English. I think she often thought of herself as Australian, probably more than English. Her younger brother, she loved him very dearly, and he came back to Australia, whereas she didn't. And he became Vice-Chancellor, I think, of the Adelaide University. And so when he asked her whether she would be interested in donating some money to set up this postgraduate college, she was really keen to do so, because I think of a love of Australia and a love of him. Her second son was killed during the Second World War at the age of 19, and he was a very bright scholar. He went to Eton and he was one of the exceptional kids. I think she felt he missed out on an opportunity, whereas his two brothers actually went to university and had that opportunity. So I think that was another reason why she felt she would really like to contribute.
We did have a painting of Kathleen Lumley, a huge painting hanging on the wall, and I was actually a member of council of the college, a student representative for a couple of years. And whenever we met in there, I was always very inspired by that oil painting of Kathleen Lumley.
She was happy to hear that it was hung in the library, which was the only air-conditioned room. So she'd be cool all year round, yeah. I know she was incredibly proud of this place, and I think she loved the thought of different faculties or different PhD students coming together, being able to mix and talk and learn from each other. I think she thought that was a really powerful concept.
I think it was through the Postgraduate Students Association that I heard that the college was starting in 1967. Got in touch with somebody, I don't know who, and they said, well, you can come into the college. There are already a few students living in the cottages that are on Finnis Street. And so I began on the 2nd of January in 1968 here at the college. So I was student number 7. There were not very many of us.
Doing a high degree by research can be an isolating experience. Everyone's got an individual journey. So for me, moving to a new country, I wanted to at least share that experience, the early years at least, with other people who are going through something similar to me.
I was recruited to work at the University of Adelaide by the Department of Pathology, and they needed to put me up somewhere, and they found Kathleen Lumley College. I was obviously postgraduate, but I was going to be a staff member, and it was a very convenient landing place. I came with just one suitcase. I struggled to sleep when I first arrived because it was so quiet, no traffic, nothing. And I really liked Friday and Saturday nights because the pub made it a bit more normal for me.
When I first visited Kathleen Lumley before I came here as a student, I was very taken by the architecture. It was very lovely.
Here you've got a community that's small enough to have people know each other, have meeting places and outdoor areas. It's actually the sort of place you would dream of living in.
Neil Platten was a lovely person. He designed the college, and he also designed the University Union building, highly regarded in the architectural world, won numerous awards. He always, I think, felt the college was something that he felt very close to.
Kathleen Lumley was also influenced by a monastery in Greece called Kasariani, which Dad just loved the play of the light and the way that you couldn't really tell where the building stopped and the nature began. It was so gentle. It was a very, very gentle and loving place, I think. When he was approached by Bob Lewis to come up with the design and planning for Kathleen Lumley, and Dad had envisaged that the community that he wanted to build would be greatly enhanced by the building's interaction with nature. And he saw a place with Mont Kasariani where people could live in community, but the building itself would present a loving and embracing space that had a lot of room for contemplation. A community that you can actually visibly get to know in a lifetime is 120 people, and apparently in the Roman army was 120 was the number of the company of soldiers. And Dad was really pleased to think about how a community of that size could be integrated in a building, see each other and know when they wanted to be private and know when they wanted to communicate.
I love the way it's built around the courtyard in a sense. The courtyard is a real focus. The doors of the rooms in the main residence face onto that courtyard. And you'll look down into the courtyard and there'll be people there that you know, and they're sitting at a table doing something. You might have a chat. It's a lovely little break in your, what can be a very serious period of what you're doing. And it really provided a fantastic kind of focus for the community. We'd have barbecues there on Sundays, chess tournaments. It was a great place to kind of hang out. The layout with a dining room downstairs, which has this very kind of airy feel. Just talking after dinner by the fireplace, just sort of generally hanging out. It was great.
The design is extraordinary because it's thoughtful and it's functional and it's designed for a community.
The buildings hold their age so well because they're so unique. It's not like you can say, oh, that's part of a fashion. Dad didn't follow a fashion. And my husband used to say, if you follow fashion, by definition, you're behind fashion. So Dad was just doing what he believed in and what he knew would work, and he took so much great care with so many elements.
I think it was later in that year, 1968 that it was completed, or part of it was completed, because there was an inaugural dinner. And that was addressed by Malcolm Fraser, who happened to be the Minister for Education and Science at the time.
When I first arrived at the college in February 1980, John Coates was still the master at that time, and I got to know him and his wife reasonably well, but they finished their term during the year and David Clements took over the role. The masters played a pretty critical role, really. I mean, they had a presence, they made sure they were around, you know, when things were happening and talking to people in the courtyard, sort of gauging how things were going, and they would have to deal with any issues that arose.
The people on the council, they were all sort of into the college, you know. It was part of them, you know. And Neil Platten, oh yes, that was something. Everything that had to be done around the college, the master, you weren't allowed to do anything unless it was architecturally designed. Everything had to be architecturally designed. No matter whether you wanted just a cupboard or something, it had to be architecturally designed.
Harry Medland was a council member of the University of Adelaide. In fact, he became the Deputy Chancellor at one stage. He was passionate about the University of Adelaide, and he was passionate about Kathleen Lumley College. He was a remarkable man in that he had been a prisoner of war of the Japanese in the Second World War, of course. Strong-minded man, very strong in his opinions. As a chairman of the college council, he ran it like an army operation.
When I joined the college council in the mid-90s, our chair then was Harry Medland. Harry Medland is very well known in the university community, a real personality, served on the council, and was really strong in the internationalisation of the university and those connections.
I've always been interested in creating busts. Having dental training, I should know quite a lot about the anatomy of a face and head and so on, and also from my digital skills should be fine. So I had already created quite a few of my colleagues. There'd been a disagreement with Harry and the council, and he had actually resigned. And I thought, well, this would be a good thing to make sure that Harry is still revered by the college. Harry had such an amazing face. It shows his strength. I think he was very, very pleased with the bust because it was mounted and was put in the front courtyard of the college initially, and then someone stole it. I don't know if they just thought it was a wonderful sculpture or whether they were just trying to make some money. The police found it up in Queensland, so that was a lucky find, so it was returned to the college and then remounted.
Living in Kathleen Lumley at that time for me was just so easy compared with before and after in my life. I mean, it's fantastic being here because it just beautifully streamlined our lives so that we could totally focus on our research projects, whatever they were, in a way that I haven't been able to do before or since that period.
The service we had was amazing. So we literally could, you know, when I was like doing my graduate diploma and I had to go to class every day, you know, the fact that you just woke up, got dressed, breakfast was already there, ready for you. You just a short walk from the university, get a bit of exercise. It was the most supportive environment.
Meals were provided 6 days a week, 2 meals, breakfast and dinner, so we all sat around the table. So that gave us the opportunity to make contact with people that we might not otherwise say hello to. Maybe they come in at different times to different things. So there was a big opportunity for us to talk and break the ice.
So Anna was wearing heels, and so every morning she'd come down the stairs and then walk by my room, and you could kind of hear the heels from, you know, from when she hits the stairs basically, and it was the time for me to get up and join her for breakfast. There was a whole group of people who basically converged in the dining room every morning.
So there was about 5 or 6 of us that hung out.
Yeah. So it wasn't too obvious.
I think it was obvious to everyone else because he would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
It wasn't obvious to you?
It wasn't obvious to me. Because usually he'd get up at 10 o'clock for breakfast, just before the breakfast room closes. But suddenly he was coming to breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is when I would go for breakfast. First day, yes. First day. So I was literally in front of his room, and he introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and he said, I asked him what he did, and he said he was a mathematician. I said, oh, I wanted to be a mathematician, and I think that's the last thing he expected me to say. Most girls, females, is that the right thing to say, wouldn't have said, yeah, I'd like to be. So yeah, that's how we started. Wasn't that the right first conversation?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. And he was quite adamant that we should never ever get married. That was his thing, and I was completely pleased with that. I wasn't into commitment, in that sense. And he said we should get engaged. I said, oh yeah, sure. Then he repeated again, we should get engaged. And then it was the third time, and then I looked at him and I said, so you have a ring? And he goes, I do. I said, so you do? So where's this ring? And he goes, it's in my office. So we got dressed, had breakfast, and we went off to his office. And we got to his office, and he opened this drawer. This drawer was a mess. And so he was going through all the stuff, and he pulled out this ring. And it was the $2 ring from the reject shop. And I was thrilled.
It's a mood ring, changes color.
I was so thrilled. We got engaged on my birthday, and we got married on his.
Another one of those decisions, it's time to get married. And then, our whole circle of friends here in Adelaide, Australia, was here in the college.
Yeah,
we were kind of sitting with all these people every day, and it was really natural to do it here.
Living at a college like Kathleen Lumley, you're exposed to the ups and downs of life together. When you're living with a cohort of people for an extended period of time, you face the joys of their successes, but you also work through some of the failures and disappointments together, and that naturally gives you a better perspective of the person, of who they really are.
It was really quite an important factor that this college was purely postgraduate students. And that's because we're all at the kind of same part of our careers. We've gone through the undergraduate years, and by that stage, most people are really quite serious about their studies. So there was this incredible kind of diversity of work being done by students, and that made it a real melting pot. It was very supportive because doing a PhD can be a very lonely experience. Being here, there was a camaraderie, and not only that, a kind of psychological support group as well, because you do encounter problems in your research, and there are lows as well as highs, and we were all here to kind of help each other.
Being in a new country without knowing anyone, it takes a toll on your mental health sometimes. You wonder, will I make friends? Will I be accepted? But I feel that this was a great landing spot for me because of the kind of community that was established here. It allowed me to be curious, adventurous, ask questions. So the person I came in, while I wasn't shy, I was a bit timid. But the 3 years that I was here, I came out with a lot more confidence just because of the great network that I made here.
Because of the size of the college, the atmosphere here was very intimate. At that stage, maybe 50 residents. And you do connect with those people in a very kind of deep way. It's not superficial. They're all here for a significant period of time. Of course, in that time, seeing each other every day and talking about stuff, you do develop deep bonds, and that's why quite a few of us are still really well connected all these years later, because it was like a kind of big extended family.
I mean, people would just do things together all the time, right? I mean, you meet for breakfast, you meet for dinner, and then you decide, oh, let's do something else, go into the city. Or, you know, we went to the juggling club a lot. We had a 60mm club. So I was the president of the Residents Association for 3 years here. So we did lots of functions, for example, organized those things, and just hung out here a lot. Table tennis in the common room.
It was very like-minded people, similar quirky interests. I think that attracted all of us.
We had residents here who actually gave us a taste of their cuisines when we had the international night, when we were actually cooking for the foundation members and for anyone else that was happy to come and join us for the international night. It used to be really, really fun, as were all our other events that we had here, because I think we all came together as a group, or more or less as a family.
So it was a very multicultural event, and we got to learn about them, their country, their food, language, a bit of history. If you had, like, say, a Greek talking to a Turkish person. So it was just, yeah, an amazing learning environment.
But it was the masters and anyone else who was associated with the college to be welcomed there, as well as all the students here. In turn, it was for the residents here to cook and feed those people instead of the staff that worked here. And I do believe that even the kitchen staff used to join us for that, because this was like our way of giving back to them. I would at least say there were about 40 to 50 different nationalities living here under the same roof. Meeting people from all those diverse backgrounds, knowing about how they were in their daily lives, and especially getting a taste of their cuisine, it made me realize that at the end of the day, it didn't matter where you came from. It was that we're all the same. We heard the same way, we're happy the same way, and we all want the same thing. And we're all capable of loving each other. And we're all capable of living together, each other under harmony.
When I first came here, I was blown away by just how many different people were living here, from different countries, different ethnicities, different religious groups. So that immediately exposed me to a group of people who I learnt a lot from, not just in terms of an academic sense and their university journeys, but in terms of a cross-cultural sense, in terms of socializing with people that I'd probably never have been exposed to if I was living in a flatting situation.
One of the things they made sure was, if you joined here, in the interview they said you need to attend meals, because they wanted to build that kind of culture. You know, you had to attend at least 2 formal dinners a year.
The Founders' Dinner, this is where the residents, the broader community of Kathleen Lumley College, including the council members and the board members, the university community, including the alumni of the residents as well, get together to celebrate the college.
There were often politicians or former dignitaries of one kind or another, or people who had actually been instigators in the initiation of the college itself, who gave the address at the dinner.
And as far as dress code goes, they were always beautifully dressed, and a lot of international students in really gorgeous saris or very short glittery evening dresses and things like that. And the speakers were of just about every political persuasion or some other really interesting person. So there were some really good speeches at those dinners.
Then the other thing that's really big that we did during my time here was we played a game called Big Two.
It originated from Hong Kong. A lot of us just took to it straight away, and we would play cards night after night after night for probably a couple of years.
I have a resident here who we call the master. He is the master of Big Two. I learned it from him, and that was like an everyday thing for us after dinner. Everyone probably had an attendant or helper, And then there would be screams and shouts and fights amongst us to see who's the winner.
Why I introduced Big Two? Because usually after the dinner, we go up to the common room, and initially we try to talk with each other, share our experience in uni. Some of them start to play chess, some of them will listen to the music. So I think why we can just make some sort of closer connection by playing some card games. And in that, by that time, there was a popular game in Hong Kong. The major aim for the Big Two game is to get rid of your card as soon as possible.
We bonded with each other with it, and everyone kind of had their own personal style of playing, so it was a lot of fun.
We sometimes played overnight, and I remember sometimes we play until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and one of us will wake up and call the pizza, and then we continue again.
And ironically, this is how the reunion began. I actually had a card reunion about 15 years ago, and a couple of people flew from overseas to do it. 1 year ago, when we started planning for this one, began as well. It's like, let's have another card reunion group. But then there's so many people that played cards. Once the word got out, people were like, oh yeah, I'll be in on that. And then it just became a general reunion.
So something that I think is really undervalued and that should be emphasised in terms of the college's history is how the college staff often went above and beyond their own roles to look after the safety, well-being and success of all of the students that were here. Whenever we had an issue, we had someone to go to talk to 9 to 5, and then you had someone to talk to from 5 till 9 the next day in the junior dean or the other roles that existed within the college setup. And that safety net is a huge psychological relief for a lot of students for whom this is their first time living abroad, living without family.
And they used to come into the office and talk to us, and I think it was just a bit of homely comfort. I think we did make a difference in people's lives for their time that they were here and help them to cope with things that were a bit alien to them. We're not trained counsellors, but I think we did a lot of counselling in our time.
Well, the cat was here before everybody else, and the cat was here after everybody left. The cat owned the college in many ways, yeah. I mean, there were other cats who were trying to come in, but that never happened. Well, it was a very special cat, black, demon.
I was a cat officer, so I had to feed her in the morning and then clean her dish and feed her at night, but also sharp 2 o'clock in the morning. She would come and she'd scratch my door, which means I'd have to open the door, she'll come in, jump on my bed, I have to lift my quilt, she'll go under my quilt and she'll sleep with me till the next morning. And it was funny, I left Kathleen Lumley and I came back 4 years later just for a conference, and I stayed. I was staying in a different room. She did the same thing. 2 o'clock in the morning, she came scratching my door, asked to come in under my blanket. That was Billy.
Billy was always chasing the birds. But the Willy Wagtails were very clever. So they knew when they were alone, they had to stay out of Billy's way. But when they had a group of them together, they were on Billy, So it is about, having your group of friends and, yes, strength in company and solidarity. I think that's almost the spirit. Not that we have to attack anyone, but we felt safe because we had our friends. And sometimes, like in my experience, and I'm sure this happened to the other women as well, if we had to go back to the college, to the uni, late at night, to the library or whatever, we didn't walk alone, because we would have to go through the bridge and all those dark areas across the river. There were other male students who walked with us.
those social connections still are with me now and still continue to shape my life here, because we've all had different career pathways, but we keep in touch.
Having met lots of lovely people here from all parts of the world and seeing them travelling just tickled my, interest to go and travel in their countries as well. And I went and I travelled in Spain, Hungary, Switzerland, Germany, France. That part of my life is so rich because I met the people here, and that just opened my horizon.
In many ways, it shaped my professional career because the experiences that I had at Kathleen Lumley were certainly pivotal in me landing my first academic appointment at the University of South Australia. I was able to showcase the mentoring that I had with other research students and other young students. I was able to showcase the leadership experience that I'd had. I was able to showcase the event management experience that I'd had. And these are all important skills when you become a lecturer. I joined the Kathleen Lumley Finance Committee. Through that, I made very high-profile connections within Adelaide.
Being given the opportunity to be in a leadership position, I was responsible for entertainment, but just being in a new country and you have that kind of responsibility, you're in charge of a budget, it gives you that confidence to go out into the world and say, hey, I can actually apply to be a manager, for example, or a role that maybe you feel a bit intimidated by because, I'm not from Australia. So to lead other students, to help other students as well, Kathleen Lumley has contributed to a lot of things.
Towards the end of my time here, I obtained a Rhodes Fellowship to the University of Oxford. And I think being here for that period at Kathleen Lumley really was a great transition between, growing up and doing my first degree in Melbourne, coming here and having that really wide experience, both intellectually and multiculturally. And I think it really prepared me for going to Oxford. You built a certain confidence in portraying your point of view. Because we had all these robust kind of intellectual conversations, you developed the ability to, really put forward your point of view in a nice way, but to make it known. And I think, especially being a woman in that period in my field, that was never going to be an easy thing to do.
I'd say that I have a lot more empathy as a result of being at Kathleen Lumley College, just because of the exposure to such diverse sets of people. You are very immediately called on to understand your own cultural background, your own potential biases and issues, and how you might need to navigate those as you're dealing with someone completely different.
When COVID hit, we were down to about 20 residents who really couldn't go. We couldn't get people in. The costs are more, the financial support is less, and we met with the university and we were told that international postgraduate students wouldn't recover until about 2025.
My memory is that it was increasingly difficult to fill vacancies. It was increasingly common to see that the college was shortfalling in terms of its accommodation. And other people were getting in on that act too and were developing different sorts of student accommodation, which was often more attractive for those students, for people coming for short-term times, for people who wanted a more undergraduate-like existence.
So the decision to sell the property was a really difficult one. The college has a wonderful, rich history, has made a difference to a lot of people over time, but times have changed and how we support people needs to change along with that. So we made the decision that the college remaining as a residential college was not viable and we'd look to repurpose. We are looking to support postgraduate students, particularly PhD students, by research, and postdoctoral students in their study. We'd like those areas of study to have a social impact, and we'll be working with the Adelaide universities to award those scholarships starting from 2026.
Our goals are very focused on three things. Firstly, we would like our scholarships to make a difference to the prosperity of the state in terms of economic prosperity, environmental prosperity, social and cultural prosperity. We'd like the scholarships to be able to be a mechanism to attract and also to sustain the best minds. And finally, the scholarships will result in long-term relationships between scholars, as well as the scholars and others within the state.
I think the spirit is right, that we want to keep the funds and keep the involvement as a council and just morph into something that's got longevity.
Our hope is that the Kathleen Lumley Foundation Scholarship Program will provide our scholars with an opportunity to set themselves apart from other scholars. It will indicate to employers that they've been involved in this important initiative, which ultimately is contributing to the state, but also more broadly.
One of the things that we are going to do is make sure that the recipients of the scholarships do have the opportunity first to meet the councils and secondly to meet each other. And I think that would be a wonderful way to do a full circle of these relationships that were formed within the Kathleen Lumley College, but we can form them outside the Kathleen Lumley College in the foundation. And I think that would be exactly what Kathleen Lumley would have liked.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's just absolutely terrific. What students need is money to provide, to enable their own support so that they can choose the best ways to support themselves. I think providing financial support to students is the most effective and the best way of supporting education. And this sense of community is something that students who've lived in the college over the past decades since it was established felt very strongly and positively about. And I think the foundation, which might not have that physical environment anymore, can nevertheless create that community. Obviously, Kathleen Lumley as a name has extraordinary reach into the community of Adelaide, and it can use that to benefit its status and the support that's provided to the student beneficiaries.
We envisage that the students will create and contribute to the KLF community by attending events that we will host, where they'll share their research with each other and with council, and also that they'll make themselves available for the kinds of important promotional activities that we will put forward to promote KLF. So perhaps contribute to some social media pieces or some general media pieces where they explain their experiences to potential applicants. So yeah, we'd see it as twofold: participating in events and encouraging other scholars, both formally and informally, to apply.
It was probably the best part of my life. I mean, if I was to go back into maybe a time machine, this is what I would probably want to relive. And that was why I came back here at the end of 2019, 2020, when the college wasn't shut down. But I still came here just to experience that vibe. And I never forgot it. It was like when I came back, it was like I had never left.
I think having known the history of this place and how many people had been here and meeting the alumni from the 70s, the 80s and 90s, you kind of think that you'll be part of that, you know, that cohort that keeps on coming back, either to give back to the college or, you know, if you ever have children that, you know, you can take them past here and say, hey, that's where I went. Because during the years, we used to have a lot of alumni come by with their kids and say, this is where I studied in the 80s or the 90s. So yeah, it was very sad, especially for me, because this was the first place I came to in Australia. And yeah, just thinking that the place which you called home for so long wouldn't exist anymore was really sad.
I thought it was just a unique experience. Just speaking with all these younger people at the time, asking about the research they were doing and where they came from. But it was, yes, it was just such a harmonious place.
I can tell by using my own experience that entering this community is probably the most impactful in terms of characters than my study.
It just gave me the confidence that I could probably live anywhere in the world and I'd be okay with it.
The strength of the college has been the alumni and where they've been to, and we want to have our new alumni going forward, and we want them to be our ambassadors, to engage with us. We will look to have functions and events where we can hear from them. When the college was operating, there'd be forums, there'd be students here presenting on their studies and their findings, sharing it with their colleagues. And we will be looking to continue that in a different form. Our scholars know that they are Kathleen Lumley Scholars. They get to meet other Kathleen Lumley Scholars. They encourage other people to apply. And we will look to build that over time through events and functions where people can come together, celebrate people's achievements and studies, and hear from our scholars and the impact they're making through their studies.
I think the future is incredibly bright. I think it's extraordinarily bright.